And welcome everyone. This is Luke Grand, Practical Farmers of Iowa staff host. Welcome to Practical Farmers of Iowa Farminar. We're very glad you can join us tonight, and we will have another wonderful 90-minute session here that we're glad to get to put on, and glad to have you as a participant. So do share in the chat box throughout with any questions you have, and we'll try to help you out as much as we can and keep these working for you and helping you along your way. Let's do a quick introduction. The purpose. Why are we here? I think we're all here because we care about farmers. We care about our communities. We care about our rural areas, and we want to see farmers succeed. Because if farmers succeed, we all succeed. They're the folks that make us that produce the food we eat, and really important that we have great farm economies all the way around us to protect us and feed us well. We have really great member support at Practical Farmers of Iowa, and I think that's the real reason why we are growing so well. As an organization, we're growing about 15% each of the last 5 years now, and we hope to add you to our membership as well. I'll talk a little about that later. But the purpose we're all here tonight is to see these farms succeed and to learn more, and to not just succeed by profit, but succeed by ecological sound practices, adding new innovative techniques to reduce soil erosion and increase soil organic matter, all the things that help make our agriculture more sustainable. And it's a triple bottom line, really, the focus in all of our programming. So we want to make sure that that's at the forefront in all of our minds. But we can't forget about the people. The people is really, it's a three-legged stool, some people like to say. And communities alive and active and vibrant and growing are very important to the three-legged stool of agricultural sustainability. And we all care about the next generation. That's what it's all about, right? To do a good job today, tomorrow, and so that one day that we can hand over the reins to the next generation to take over, and we want to give them the best chance we can, best start we can at their go at their duties in this world. So we think we're all here for that reason. Practical Farmers of Iowa has this great Farminar series we've put on now for three and a half years, and we're right in the middle of our winter series. So we take these each week on Tuesday nights from November through March, and we're hoping you can join us all the way through the end of February for our winter Farminar series. A lot of great topics spanning the diversity of agricultural enterprises that exist, and we hope to take your input to add to this list for future years. We directly use your recommendations for programming the Farminar series, so we definitely encourage you in our online SurveyMonkey survey I'll be sending out this week to everybody with an email in the chat box. I'd love to have you tell us what speakers you want to hear from next year. Tell us what topics you want to hear more about on your farm. And we're always available also by email and phone to the Practical Farmers of Iowa office. practicalfarmers.org is our website. To give us some great feedback, and we'll be sure to get your questions answered and issues addressed. The process for tonight, we're going to do this quick introduction here. We're going to have introductions from our two speakers, and then we'll have about a half hour of discussion until about 8 o'clock, and we'll have a whole half hour for your questions from the audience as well. So do participate and add your 2, 3, 4 cents worth questions you have in the chat box at the left, and we will get those answered. And we'll conclude promptly at 8:30, so we can move on with our schedules for the evening. I want to also encourage everybody to be a member of Practical Farmers of Iowa. I bet 75% of you are members already, but if not, this is a great opportunity to join Practical Farmers of Iowa. You get to be involved in the day-to-day operations and decision-making of the programming that helps farmers succeed and helps our communities thrive. So do consider joining as a member. Just $20 a year for students and $50 for the whole farm. This is an annual membership, and something you can even have a renewal membership that automatically takes from your bank account every 12 months, so you don't have to remember every time, or you can become a lifetime member for just $1,000. You can keep up with us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook fan page, and we'd love to have you like us on Facebook so we can keep you up to date with what we're up to. And if you're in central Iowa or anywhere in the state and want to drive over to the Cooperators program, members are invited to the Thursday Cooperator meeting this week in Ames, Iowa. It starts at 12 p.m. and it goes on all afternoon into the evening with a special dinner and recognition ceremony for master farmer researchers. The Cooperator program was started to really give practical answers to questions that farmers had about on-farm challenges. How much nitrogen do I need to put to grow a good crop? In the early 90s, our farmers found out that they could reduce their inputs of nitrogen by 20%. That's a lot of money they can keep in their pocket. And they didn't have any loss in yields with that. So the research that they did on their farms, the questions they had, and the answers they came up with helped to increase their profitability, their ecological stewardship, and also their community vitality. So that's great opportunities to learn, get answers to questions you have about your farm and what's going on. Cooperators meeting coming up this week. You're welcome to attend. If you're a member, just contact Tomoko at practicalfarmers.org. Finally, if you have somebody in your life that's a beginning farmer that wants some paid on-the-job training from farmers, there's 10 opportunities right now listed on our website, practicalfarmers.org/labor-for-learning. Opportunities to learn from farmers, including the Grinnell Heritage Farm. Melissa Dunham and Andy Dunham on the Farminar tonight are one of those. Oh, as well as Sean Skehan and Jill Bebout, other farmers on the Labor for Learning PFI Trainer program. So the great opportunity there to have folks get paid on-the-job training, learn from experienced farmers, and get a bunch of great other benefits too. So send people to that link that you know that might want to apply. Deadline is February 15th. That's it. That's all I had. So we'll start with Melissa Dunham, and then we'll go to Pete. We'll have your questions, and we'll conclude at 8:30. So thank you all for coming.
All right. Thank you, Luke. All right. My name is Melissa Dunham, and I am with Grinnell Heritage Farm here in Grinnell, Iowa. For those of you who are not familiar with Iowa, Grinnell is right in between Des Moines and Iowa City. So we're kind of smack dab in the middle of the state. And let's see. Oh. All right. So this is, we're just doing a brief overview. Luke, I don't know how to move the green arrow off Leonor's head, but I don't think it matters, right? No. I'm going to say it doesn't. Anyway, so this is a brief overview of our farm. This is my family, my husband and I in the center there, and our 3 children. If any of you are vegetable farmers and you have children, most likely you have several pictures of them with vegetables. So this is a brief overview of why I like to do what we do. My husband and I work full-time on the farm, and we have since I moved here in 2007, and it's working out pretty well for us. Here are a couple more photos. We grow a lot of kale. There's Colin helping out in the packing shed, packing some kale. This was our farm expanded in 2011. Andy there in the bottom right-hand corner is standing before our new walk-in cooler space. It's an 18 by 43 walk-in cooler, and we put on a loading dock as well. This is kind of how we start things, just in the greenhouse. We sell to, we have 3 different outlets for sales. We sell at farmers markets May through October, and then we do one Des Moines Winters Farmers Market in November and December. We also sell about 250 CSA shares, and that our CSA program runs May until through December. And then we also sell to grocery stores. We've got some great co-ops here in the state of Iowa, and they like to support local farms. So those are our 3 main outlets for sales of products. An example of our CSA shares. When it comes to farm labor, we have about 8 people on staff full-time, and currently we are just running it seasonally. Jose there on the left, Jose and Angel they've been on staff for going on 5 years, and they typically start at the end of February when we get our greenhouse going, and then more staff kind of gradually comes on, and then we're fully staffed typically by May, when the field it's really getting going. So, and then seasonally, by seasonally I mean we're probably wrapping things up by the end of October, and then we'll keep a handful of staff through the month of November and December for special projects and for packing out roots for wholesale purposes. Just an example of carrots, a winter box, a couple of field photos, on-farm events, another reason I like doing what we do. Good times. We do not currently have, a lot of CSAs will do like a work swap. I'm not sure if Pete's going to touch on that at all, if you have like a worker share or anything like that, but we're not currently doing that. We're interested in learning more about that, so I don't know if that's coming up or not, but the bottom right-hand corner, that was our staff in 2011. That includes family. So good group of people. We have a lot of good people here. And that is kind of it. We're excited to learn more from Pete and how he is doing this year-round. It would be great to learn some tricks of the trade. So, Luke, are we opening it up for questions on our farm specifically right now, or are we waiting?
I think we'll first have Pete's story, introduction about his farm development, and then we'll have your questions. Well, you can follow along your list of questions you prepared and get those questions answered, and then we'll have questions from the audience as well.
Okay.
My turn?
That's right.
Okay.
And Pete, you want
my name is Pete Johnson.
Sorry, Pete, you wanted me to pull up your website, is that right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
My name is Pete Johnson. I run a farm called Pete's Greens in northern Vermont. The town is Craftsbury. It's about 20 minutes from the Canadian border in the center of the state. Traditionally, we've been Zone 3. That's been changing over the last few years, it seems. We're probably 3.5 or 4 at this point. Luke's going to show you some stuff on our website as we go through. Just want to give you some perspective on where we started as a business and where we are now, and how our year-round employment will fit right in the middle of that, and give you some sense of how that helped us get to where we are. I started Pete's Greens on my parents' property in 1997, and basically cleared some land out of the woods in order to do it, and had about 1/4 to 1/2 acre there. Built a greenhouse. My concept, I'd become friends with Elliot Coleman in college, and my concept was that I was going to just grow in the fall, winter, and spring, and enjoy my summers and live happily ever after. And quickly realized that in my climate here, that was not going to happen. We get very little winter production here. We do some winter growing, but it's not very lucrative. So even that first year, we continued through the whole year, and we were growing just greens, hence the name, Pete's Greens, and just baby greens, and we stuck with that for the first 3 or 4 years, and then we started to diversify and lease some land, and kind of grew and grew, and now in 2012, we grossed $1.7 million. We have 20 employees in the growing season. That's sort of April 1st through November for us. 12 full-time year-round folks. We have 6 H2A Mexican workers that come here every year that are really key to our operation now. We sell, we have 500 CSA shares year-round. We sell at one farmer's market. We have a self-serve farm stand in our front yard. And we sell to 130 stores and restaurants in the course of a year, mostly in Vermont, a little bit in Boston. In a given week, we're probably selling to about 60 of those stores and restaurants. Some of them come and go seasonally. And it's a circus here. There's a lot going on every week of the year. Currently, our midwinter sales are about 2/3 by the week of our biggest weeks in the summertime. So there's not really much for downtime anymore, and that's an interesting thing to ponder when you are thinking about getting into a year-round system. And for me, that I think we first moved into doing things year-round because I was really uncomfortable with this idea that we're trying to be a good professional business, but we were trying to start every spring with sometimes a new batch of people because we didn't have work for them all winter, and that just seemed to me different from the way any other business anywhere runs, and very short-sighted and not wise in the long term. But I remember it's about probably 7 or 8 years ago when we first started looking into doing some stuff year-round, and we rented this kind of crappy storage space a couple towns over from here. And I remember going down there by myself on a couple days a week and washing root crops and packing them, and really not enjoying it, and ending up kind of skipping it for a while and skiing instead, and just kind of realized that if I was going to do this, I was going to need to do it at a scale where other people were involved, and I had company, and I had help, and I wasn't just kind of washing carrots and beets all winter by myself. And so I just decided to take the plunge and do more and more of it. Are you guys all hearing me?
Yep.
Okay. This is my first experience with a webinar, so I just want to make sure we're still online here. A little bit more about our current business. We crop 80 acres. We grow on 80 acres. We have about 4 acres under cover. A very small amount of that is heated greenhouse. The rest of it is, some of it's double covered, unheated greenhouse, and some of it's seasonal tunnels. These have all been key structures to our profitability. But basically, in the wintertime, we're growing enough greens or greenery to kind of lubricate the sales of these root crops that we grow. We now grow about 25 to 30 acres of storage crops of various types: potatoes, carrots, beets, turnips, celeriac, parsnips, rutabaga, everything you can grow and store. And onions are a really key crop for us, cabbage. And those are great crops for this climate, I think also for your climate in Iowa. They grow really well without a lot of special treatment. And we've invested heavily in the storage facility to create proper conditions to store them. And we're still learning a lot about the storage. It's not something that most of us grow up doing anymore. We would have 100 years ago. We would all have root cellars, but those days are kind of past. And it's been an interesting journey. A lot of hard lessons learned, some significant losses, but we've really got our facility pretty well dialed in now, and are experiencing some really good storage conditions. Carrots, beets, potatoes, turnips, cabbage are all year-round crops for us now. We have last year's crop until the new crop comes in, and that's really been key for us being the go-to operation for stores and restaurants to come to for their steady supply. We had a barn fire 2 years ago. We had remodeled a dairy barn that all of our storage and supplies and workspace were in, and it burned to the ground. And that actually turned into kind of an amazing opportunity. We got a lot of support from the community, and we built a big new building that was really the building that we needed, but we didn't really have the guts to build without having a fire. And we are still kind of figuring out how this building works and getting it all dialed in, but it's really allowed us to take a big step forward, and it's created a really pretty pleasant work environment for our staff. And we've discovered that keeping employees happy through the winter months is a bit of a challenge. Most of the work is inside. They're mostly washing and packing these roots with some greens and greenhouse work, but not a huge amount. So it's sort of like working in a wet, dirty industrial site in a lot of ways. And we try to make it as fun as possible, and we have lunch made most days here on the farm for the crew, and there's music playing and whatnot, but it's definitely been a source of burnout over the years, and we've had some great folks who loved it here during the growing season and just really struggled to get through the winter. We seem to be turning a corner on that now, but I think it's important not to underestimate the potential burnout of your crew if you're going year round, and not just your crew, but also you or whoever the main farmers are. But there is also potential for a less stressful summer. Like, we don't have to make or break things in July and August around here. And it's important that we all keep on a pretty even keel, pretty steady state, because all our crops are in pretty much by November 1st, but we're still washing and packing stuff every week and getting stuff out the door, and that's a significant amount of work, and we can't all be totally exhausted and worn out and have to collapse for a month. So it's led to more of a sort of an even-keeled type farming year, where we really try not to get too worked up about anything in particular and just have a nice steady schedule. There's, of course, ebbs and flows to it all. But there's been some positives to that. I think a lot of the year-round, I took a lot of examples from other businesses when we were really getting serious about being year-round. Most businesses out there in the world do operate year-round, and some of them are not at all seasonal. And so it was, there's plenty of examples of how this works and how employees avoid burnout and this sort of thing. But I think that so many of us have sort of this idea of a small-scale vegetable farm as being a place where you really bust your ass for 5 or 6 months, and then everybody kind of kicks back for a while. And it's important to not expect that you can work with that same intensity all the time. And part of that's just having enough folks that people can go on vacation and have time off and take their weekends for the most part and that kind of thing. And we've been really working hard towards that. I think that's pretty good preamble for me. Should we open this up to me and Melissa chatting with each other?
Let's do it.
Your farm is beautiful, Pete. Great pictures on your website.
So is yours.
I think
when you live in Vermont, you don't, Iowa's kind of this vague thing way out there. I've been through a few times, and I know the soil's amazing.
Yeah, you did pretty well. Now, Luke, Pete, you have a copy of the questions that we sent, right? Are you going to kind of go through those?
I don't have it in front of me anymore. I read it earlier. I don't have it in front of me now.
Do you want me to prompt you, Melissa?
Sure, or put it up there. Either way. I can look through my email. I totally understood what you were saying about like the winter doldrums in the packing shed. I think one thing that we were thinking about if moving to a full year employment is it's the winters are kind of dark and dreary, and being in a cold kind of damp packing shed is not overly exciting. Do all of your employees, or how many employees do you employ during those months? Is it the same as you would in the summertime? And how do you keep people engaged during those months?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second. Do all. Well, we really focus. The upper management here really focuses on next year's change during the winter, and it's the most exciting time of the year for me, because in the summer we're pretty much dialed into what we're doing, and we're just kind of keeping up. Where in the winter we're really focused on improvements and what the big changes are going to be, big and small changes, and we're really trying to engage the whole crew at every level in this process now. And that's exciting to them. We just did employee surveys the other day for the first time in a while, and 80% of our folks said that one of the most exciting things about working here is that we're always looking for a new and better way to do things, and that we're open to anybody's ideas in that regard. So they really feel like if they have an idea, we will completely listen, we'll respond to it, and run with it. And that helps even, someone who's been downstairs washing carrots for just a couple months to really feel engaged and part of the process. And that's been really important, to be very overt about that intention, that we're all trying to improve and do better, and it extends to everybody on the whole crew. It's also really important to have a facility that's warm, brightly lit, comfortable. You know, you don't want them out there under a single light bulb in 36 degrees trying to get this work done. That really is tough, and it's worth investing. But that's a big, commitment for a farm to create a facility that is really amenable to doing a significant amount of this
So
winter.
how much heated square feet, or how many square feet do you have during the winter? And like, what are your utility bills? Are they pretty high? That kind of thing. And I forgot, maybe you did mention this, but how many people are you employing year round? And is it fewer during the winter or the same?
We have 12 folks year round, and they're all management to some degree, and we peak at about 20 or 21 in the growing season. We have, our new building is 16,000 square feet, but large amount of that is cooler and freezer space. So our wash and pack area is probably about 4,500 square feet. And it's quite a bit bigger. We could run a lot more food through it, and we kind of built it for the future to some degree. But we really invested in good daylighting, good lighting. The heat, we super insulated it, so heating it is not a big burden at all. The lights do use a good amount of electricity. We probably would try to do more with natural lighting if we were to build it again. But the biggest expense, utility-wise, is the refrigerators, the coolers, and the freezer. We have a very large freezer storing production from our farm kitchen and meat. So those costs are by far greater, the electricity for that, than the heating and the lighting of the workspace.
Okay. Do you offer benefits to any of your employees?
Yeah, like most farms, farm food is included. We now have a medical plan that we started about 3 years ago. It's basically high deductible insurance, but it's really been important. We have folks that have been here 7, 8, 9 years now. They're starting families, buying houses, that sort of thing, and it's been important to all of our security to have everybody under some kind of medical coverage. We have a health savings account card that people can use for other medical expenses. We provide lunch now 3 to 5 days a week, which has actually been a really significant perk that the crew really, really likes, and it saves everybody a ton of money because the alternative, we have a couple stores real nearby the farm, and a healthy chunk of folks were not bringing lunch, and they were going to the stores for lunch. And people are also eating a lot better food. And because we have this on-farm kitchen, it's really not that big a burden for us to make lunch, and the ingredients cost. We mostly get by with ingredients that are seconds or not that saleable for some reason or another. So that's pretty much our benefit package. We sometimes interns and our H2A employees get housing as well, and we're buying another farm right now that has another house on it, so we'll have more housing options for different folks. And then the medical has actually been not as hugely burdensome as some people describe it as. We don't have a lot of families here yet. I guess we have 3. Once you start having families, it certainly becomes a lot more expensive, but single people are not a real big deal. And we've been happy to have that, and that's pretty rare in our neck of the woods for a vegetable farm to have.
Who do you get insurance through?
It's Blue Cross and Blue Shield. In Vermont, you don't really have any choices, or you have maybe 2 choices. And Vermont's actually moving towards, we're probably going to have statewide medical for everybody here within the next 2-3 years. So that'll be interesting to see how that affects things. There's a lot of businesses in our area kind of somewhat similar to ours that really don't do anything medical-wise, and they claim their employees don't really care that much. But we have a core group here that was pretty concerned about that and was happy to have coverage at some level.
I think Random Hills, I don't know, Pete, did you cover that question? It's midway up on the chat box.
Yeah, I cut out there for a minute. Okay, so the question is, what are my personal hours that I work in a week? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think you personally.
I work probably 65 hours a week in the growing season and 55 hours a week the rest of the time. I do a lot of checking email in my house and that kind of stuff, so it's a little hard to tell where it starts and it stops. But I would say that when we really started diving into having a year-round crew, I became freer than I was previously. I go on, pretty significant vacations in the wintertime, and for the most part, that's worked out really well. I'm probably not quite as free as if, I had a farm that really made plenty of money in 6 months and then entirely shut down. But I find that my buddies who are shutting down, they're still pretty occupied with getting ready for the next year and don't seem to be any particularly freer than I am to come and go. The beauty of the year-round cash flow is that, at least theoretically, you can afford some really good people. We have 4 salaries now that are $50,000 a year. We have a chunk of other people at around 40, and then a chunk of people in the mid-30s. And around here, that's a level of salary you can expect a lot from folks and a lot of responsibility, and it's enough money for people to buy houses and that sort of thing. And we're pretty demanding. We have high expectations, and I expect that I can leave for a week and things will run correctly. And usually they mostly do. There's certain things that happen sometimes, but that's been a really important thing for me to feel like I had some freedom, and also to get out there and do research, farming research. Usually vacations have some component of that involved because that's fun. And so I think if you structure it right, you can actually be freer than you would be otherwise, but it kind of depends on your personality and what you like to have going on around you. And some people just don't want to be in charge of people every day of the year and really like the downtime from that, and I fully understand that. And it's a little bit hard for me to remember back to when this first started because we're so immersed in it now. It's like we don't know any other way. But I do remember feeling the real challenge of that it was mid-December, and 2 people were showing up at work, and I just didn't feel like dealing with them on that day, and they weren't that professional, and it was just kind of a bit of a burden. But now it's just kind of what we do and how we live.
Can I ask a question, just to kind of put it into perspective, and if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to, but what is your overall gross sales on an annual basis, and then what is your overall payroll expense on?
Yeah, great question. Last 2012, we grossed 1.7 million, and our CSA, we buy in what we call locavore food. We buy in other food from other farms. That was about $250,000 of that total. So, we grew about 1.4 million worth of produce, and our labor to sales ratio is right about 40%, which we think is way too high. But it seems like with this relatively professional crew that we have, we can't really get it down much lower than that. So our percentage that's net is somewhat lower than it was when we were a smaller business, but our overall dollars in net continues to grow comfortably as our gross income goes up. So I just had to become comfortable with the fact that we have pretty high labor costs, and at least they feel high to me. But that's the price you pay for having this professional crew, and that as long as you're growing and producing enough and there's some net there at the end, it all works out fine. But that's been definitely a challenge for me to get used to different numbers. I remember when our labor to sales ratio used to be 22% when we were a much smaller farm, and I was doing a bigger portion of the work myself and all that kind of stuff. But as long as it's penciling out in the end, it's all okay. And it feels good to be have people who are making real.
Hey folks, sorry about that. Looks like we might have lost our speakers, unfortunately. So I will figure out what's going on and
I'm here.
Get back to you soon.
I'm back on.
Pete, are you still there?
You there?
Okay. Okay, Melissa's back too. Okay, go ahead. Yep, sorry. I think you cut out when you were talking about when you were at 22%.
Yeah, so it's been a transition to get used to the fact that our payroll costs as a percentage of our gross are a lot higher than they used to be. But our bottom line has continued to improve as we've grown. So it's just been an adjustment to see payroll costs as a good thing, that we're giving good jobs to people in this area where there's a real small-scale ag renaissance going on in our area, and it's really the only growth industry around here. There's really not any other industry or anything going on. So the fact that we're paying above livable wage jobs and producing more and more of them is exciting, and we should be happy about that rather than lament the fact that we have big payrolls.
How about a question about the H2A Visa, H2A Visa workers, employees? What's been the process for you to go that route? Could you describe how you identify good applicants that are H2A?
We actually started with
H2A
a couple guys from a local dairy farm here who were not H2A. They just kind of showed up one day, and they were awesome. They were undocumented, and we continue to deal with their family. They happen to have a bunch of siblings and relatives who did qualify for the H2A program. I think more so here than in Iowa. We have a very, very minimal Hispanic population here. We're a relatively high-profile farm, so for us to have undocumented folks here became an issue, and we decided it wasn't worth it. So we've been all H2A now for 4 or 5 years. It's hugely burdensome. The paperwork, the process is a real pain. We have an agency that helps us a lot, who's really good. The rules change every year. It gets worse every year. It's fairly expensive now. It's $10.91 an hour this year is what you have to pay, plus provide housing, plus pay for travel. But these folks are like family to us now, and they are really a key part of our farm as far as getting the summertime production work done. But I think we could be okay if we stopped having them. I think that we could adapt to that. But we also enjoy the cultural change they bring. There's very little diversity here in northern Vermont, and we think it's good for everybody around for there to be Spanish going on and for them to bring some of their culture and that kind of stuff. And it's really been a fun thing for us. And we have several apartments in the house, and I live upstairs, and they live downstairs, and we have a good time. But it's sort of like selling year-round. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's a process. It's a lot of bureaucracy, and I really hope that possibly there's some reform coming, because it's actually quite a bit worse under Obama than it was under Bush. And yeah, and I don't want to get too into politics here, but we actually thought Bush had pretty good immigration policy as far as what he was enforcing and stuff like that. And that's all gotten considerably tighter under Obama and more burdensome.
Was it a pretty transparent process you went through to identify, how
you
how to
can
go about
name who you
finding
want to
workers
have
and
come
things?
through H2A, as long as they haven't been ever caught in the U.S.
Oh, really?
Illegally. Anybody can come, as long as they don't have a criminal record in Mexico. So that's nice. Or you can just go into the pool and have them pick out people for you. And I know people have had really good success doing that as well. But around here, most folks get Jamaicans, and most of them are, there's apple orchards around here where the same guys have been coming for 25 years. So it's most common for the same folks to go to the same farms year after year. We have 2 families now we deal with, and there's a pool of about 12 to 15 people, and 6 of them come every year. So it's a bit of a revolving thing, which is good for them because they're coming up here for 8 or 9 months, and I just don't think it's best for them to do that every year. So it's nice for them that they can kind of shift it around amongst their family and get the income. The income is really key for them, but the same people don't have to come every single year. Yeah.
Excellent. Melissa was wondering about, Margaret Smith missed the salary ranges, benefits, and vacation
Yeah, I didn't
policies.
cover
Do you want
vacation
to
policy.
hit that one
After
more
2
time?
years, you qualify for a week of vacation. After 4 years, 2 weeks. Everybody starts here at $10 an hour. We like people to be making at least 13 or so within a year. Salaried folks are 35 grand for a harvest manager. We have 3 people at $50,000 a year. One of them runs our CSA, does all of our financial stuff, and is sort of a project developer. The other one is overall facility manager. He built our building here. He's just like the handiest guy on earth, and I'm the third. I'm the third at 50,000. And then we have several folks like a mechanic at 40,000, and some other, sort of key manager type people in that range. And we're constantly, but the reality is we always have 4 or 5 non-H2A, pretty low paid, relatively new folks who are doing a lot of the work, especially the wash house type work. And sometimes some of them are pretty underpaid because they're actually really good, and they don't really catch up to what they're worth for a couple of years if they choose to stick around. But oftentimes we don't know if they're coming or going, so we don't like to increase the salary too quickly until we know that they have a real commitment to being here.
All right, we're going to bring Melissa back in to direct questions, I think, a little bit. If her computer can make it.
If sh-
I'm not hearing you yet, Melissa. I wonder
I
if,
could run down through these questions that Melissa put up here that
go
haven't
ahead,
been
Pete.
answered yet.
All right, let's
I
do
think
it.
I've covered number 1, 2, and 3 pretty well. Number 4, what are the demographics of your workforce? We have a fellow who volunteers every day all winter. He's 86. He's actually a pretty key employee. He won't let us pay him a dime. And we have a 15-month-old who's here almost every day, running around the office and entertaining everybody. But in between, we mostly have people who are in their mid-20s to mid-30s. It's sort of the bulk of our workforce. But our managerial team of 4 or 5 of us, we're getting older now, and most of us are mid-30s to 40 or so. Number 5, I think we just kind of made this move without giving it all the considerations. In hindsight, it's a big commitment to a facility and to just having people around all the time and wanting to, be responsible for and in charge of folks. Number 6, over half of our workforce is employed year-round. Number 7 is a good question. I covered some of the storage crops that we deal with. This time of year, out of our greenhouses, we are only harvesting spinach and claytonia. Check out claytonia if you're not familiar with it. It's Johnny's Selected Seeds sells it. It's an extremely hardy green. It's different. Our clientele really likes it. We also grow sunflower, radish, and pea shoots inside that we blend with some of these greenhouse greens to make a winter salad mix. And that's been a successful venture for us, although it's quite labor intensive and high management. Number 8, our market is mostly in Vermont, a little bit in Boston, a tiny bit in New York City. Vermont is getting very, very full of vegetable farms, and it's really keeping us running to keep hopefully a little bit ahead of the curve. It's possible that over time we might be headed more towards the bigger eastern seaboard markets. But for now, we've really enjoyed being in Vermont. Number 9 is a great question. We should be charging winter premium. We don't really. Starting now, the coal rate in certain stored crops tends to go up, and we should be getting slightly more per pound every day longer that we store them. Our customer base has not been too keen on that, nor have they been real keen on paying us more per pound for winter greens. So we kind of do some sneaky things like sell winter greens in slightly smaller weight denominations. We haven't really figured out the storage thing yet with the roots, but we're really studying this winter what coal rates cost you, and they cost you a lot. A small loss really changes the financial picture on a root crop. Number 10, well, a lot of our greenhouses freeze, and basically we just grow crops in there that can withstand that, and that's a whole other topic. There's lots of information out there now on winter production. Elliot Coleman's books are great. There's starting to be more information everywhere. Packing facility, we just have built a facility that is nice and warm all the time. We have a refrigerated truck that also has heat in it. Our delivery truck is out for 10 hours or more on a delivery day, so it's really important to have a good solid vehicle. So it's a heavily insulated reefer truck, and even then when it's really cold out, we have to put blankets and stuff, moving blankets over the produce inside. But it would be tough to be out there in just a regular box truck. Delivery locations, that's a great question in number 10. We have a lot of CSA drop sites that are sometimes people's porches, garages, that sorts of things. So we've had to sort of learn in every situation what level of cold temperatures they can take and then we take precautions when it's really cold out. Most of our delivery is in a warmer part of Vermont, Burlington, than where we are. So most days we're driving from a cold place to a little bit warmer place, which helps. But that still has been a challenge and something our delivery driver really has to be up on. We have a very complicated delivery with many stops and many, many different kinds of foods going many places, and our delivery driver has to be really sharp. Number 11, we used to be in zone 3, now it's probably 3.5 or 4. Number 12, I don't know what our averages are, but we've had 20 below a few times this winter. We're actually having a real winter this year. You guys probably are too. Most days in January and February does not go above freezing, and we don't have a lot of sun. It's pretty cloudy here. Number 13 is a great question. 75-mile-an-hour winds are definitely a real concern with greenhouses. I think that they're not insurmountable. We don't get 75 very often. We get 55 2 or 3 times a year. We have some very large movable greenhouses here, and properly anchoring them has been a really important thing that we engineered right. We've had some greenhouse problems in wind over the years, and we basically have learned lessons from those and improved structures and whatnot. But if you regularly get 75-mile-an-hour winds, you're definitely going to want to deal with a greenhouse company that knows what you're dealing with and builds the structure appropriately. It can certainly be done, and you're also going to have to really keep on top of your plastic, keep on top of your doors. The worst thing that can happen is a door blows open or the wind gets in behind a roll-up side, and once the wind's inside a greenhouse, it can really wreak havoc with it. So you really want your structure to be tight and buttoned down and prepared for those sorts of events. We actually like it when we have a big wind event coming because it makes us get out there and deal with greenhouse issues that otherwise it's easy to kind of let go. We had a big scare this fall. We were supposed to have 80-mile-an-hour sustained as part of a hurricane. It didn't develop at all, but we spent the 2 days before it getting our greenhouses completely in shape, and when it was all done, I was really glad that we'd had that threat. Number 14, we use waste vegetable and motor oil for heating our greenhouses. I wouldn't particularly recommend it. It's high maintenance. The system is fickle. We use a Clean Burn is the brand furnace. They're well made. They're good, but the maintenance is a little outrageous. And for example, last night the boiler went out, and a couple of us were down here screwing around with it for a while. And propane, I don't know if you have natural gas in your area, but propane is actually really cheap now, and as is natural gas, and I'm predicting it's going to be for quite a while. And we're actually toying with switching over to propane because the cost is about the same now as the waste oil, and the reliability is way better. Long term, we'll probably have a wood chip system because there's a lot of cheap wood chips in our area, but that's a major investment. Number 15, I covered that before, we give paid vacation time. Number 16, I take regular vacations and thoroughly enjoy them, and I always leave. For me, it's really key to leave the property and the state when I go on vacation. 17, yes, we keep pretty regular winter hours. Our crew is adaptable, and sometimes they'll come in on Sunday and deal with something if they need to, a few of them. We really instill responsibility in them and that they're really in charge of their various domains, and if they have to come in and deal with something on Sunday, they organize that themselves and do it, and I know what's going on, but I'm not expected to be here or to be helping or anything like that. But generally they're a 4 to 5 day a week thing in the winter. 4 days is really nice if you can work 4 longer days, especially in the winter time. People tend to really enjoy that. We're pretty busy this winter. We haven't been able to achieve that, but it sort of gives this feeling of having a break, even though they're still getting in the 40 hours. 18. Yeah, when we started having year-round work, we really started to retain these year-round managerial folks who have really been key to us building what we have here. And I don't really know how we would do this otherwise. Um, so yeah, but the caveat to that being that the winter can be a burnout for folks who really aren't cut out or mentally prepared for washing roots all winter. 19, our profitability has been pretty good the whole time we've been in business. We've really focused on that and aimed for basically charging enough for the work that we do. So I wouldn't say it's particularly improved. It's been about the same. Yeah. 20, what has not worked well? We've had several winters where we've really struggled to have enough staffing in the wintertime. That seems to be cured now, perhaps permanently. But for a while that was tough, and it was really kind of a drag to get through a tough, stressful summer production season and then have to try to figure out who was going to be here working in the wintertime. And I think that investments in a proper building and things like lunch for the crew have really been important to, and a good stereo system have really been important to making it easier to have enough bodies here in the wintertime. 21, yeah, we have occasionally felt overstaffed in the winter. We really try to get ahead on anything we possibly can. I find feeling overstaffed to be very stressful. Because oftentimes we have people here who we can't just tell to not come to work for a couple of days because they're depending on working here. So we really try to get ahead every way we possibly can, and then sometimes when we can't do any more, then we try to find something else for people to do. Sometimes that'll be going on working for friends or something like that, but it hasn't been a big problem here, but it can be a tough thing for the owner to deal with. That's the end of those questions.
You did a great job, Pete.
Sorry, Pete.
That's a real gauntlet.
Can you guys hear me now?
She's back. Look at that.
I know, huh?
Yeah.
I am going to post something here because we kind of touched on the subject of benefits. And one thing that Andy and I discovered this last year was the USDA Rural Development Farm Labor Housing Loan. Have you heard of that, Pete?
Heard of it, but don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great interest rate.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong on a deal like that. Everybody there still?
Well, it's about 8 o'clock. I was just going to say, Melissa, unless you had another question, we could go to the chat box in the audience.
Should have gone. Yeah, there it goes.
Okay, I guess I'll host the chat box questions. So folks, put your questions in the chat box for Pete or Melissa or both to comment on. I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. Pete,
Sure.
LLC, what's your business structure, corporate structure like?
Not sure what's going on here. Am I on or?
Yeah, I think Melissa's is not working correctly. I'm gonna take her off the mic. Sorry, Melissa. Please continue to participate in the chat box discussion, but I think we're gonna have to
Okay, I'm gonna
go with
take
Pete
the
on
what
audio
kind of
only.
business structure are we? We're an S corp. I'm no expert on that. I have a woman who works here is really sharp at that kind of stuff. We have a good accountant. My eyes kind of glaze over when they get deep into that, but it's set up well for what we do apparently. And yeah, we are considering some partnerships with employees with new ventures, and that's been an interesting process to kind of start into. And I'm excited about the possibilities that could bring.
What have been the hardest skills for you to find for your year-round expansion as a business? Which parts of the
Actually,
business are hardest for
a
you to
wash
staff?
house manager is really hard for us to find and retain. It's a complicated job. There's a lot going on in there. There's food coming and going. There's communication with everybody from the kitchen manager to the field producer, to the financial folks, and to the sales guy. And we really just haven't found the right person to do that job long term yet. And you also have to be comfortable being inside most of the year, which most people who want to be around a vegetable farm don't really want to be inside most of the time. And that's just sort of a function of our scale that, we have a big enough operation here that our wash house manager needs to be inside most of the time. And we're actually seeking this person right now. But we don't get a lot of applicants, and the ones we get typically don't have much relevant experience. So that's been a real challenge for us. And we've sort of filled it in with folks who are not quite up to the job, but are sort of giving it their all. And it's been a bit of a tough role for us.
Very interesting. There was a question from Jim about salarying out owners' compensation. Did you want
Yeah, I
to talk about
think
that,
what
Pete?
he's getting at is probably what's the best way to avoid some taxes, maybe. And there's all different ways to go about that. It really depends on your situation, and you need to find a good accountant to go over your scene. The reality is that on a farm, there's usually lots of different ways to tackle your taxes, and lots of different angles to come at them from, and lots of benefits to being a farm. So I think it's a discussion that's part of a bigger discussion, and you really have to know the details of an operation to have, to make good advice about it.
Right. What did you experience when you told employees, or what's your? I guess my question in the chat box now. I'm mad about the 1 week vacation. I love that you make people earn a 1 week vacation. That's just a really beautiful thing. Was that a hard sell for
To
folks?
go on vacation, you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, it seems like a lot of people want to take 4th of July vacation. They want to go on a vacation to see their friends. Especially
Right. Oh,
the
that's a good
seasonal
question. Yeah, really good question.
summer cruise.
We, people are allowed to take other vacation that's not paid, and I'd say most people here are on vacation 2 to 3 weeks of the year, and paid for part of it and not paid for part of it. And we really encourage that. We really want people to go and do other things. We do not give holidays off, and we work a lot of holidays because we're on a production schedule, You know, we're almost always working here on the 4th of July unless it's on Saturday or Sunday, and many other holidays. And that's just how it is. And the crew here has gotten used to that. And we do take a week off for Christmas. Everybody is off for the whole week of Christmas, and we're usually able to stretch that to more like 9 days. And that is separate from your week of vacation. So that's good too. And we usually try to carve out a decent amount of time around Thanksgiving, maybe an extra day or so. But there's lots of more regular holidays that are worked on this farm.
So you don't find you don't find a bunch of headaches when you let all the folks
No,
off for a
it all
couple
has
days
to be
here and there in the
scheduled.
summer?
They're very much in charge of making sure that not everybody's going at once and that somebody's there. Like if you're going to be gone for a week, you're really responsible for sort of organizing your cover for whatever jobs that you're particularly in charge of. For example, there's usually a couple people who are really in charge of the packing of the produce, filling the boxes for wholesale orders and whatnot. And before they go on vacation, they will really make sure somebody's there in their place. And usually we find that when this is all done right, that anytime somebody goes, it just allows other people to build capacity and to realize that they can do things they didn't think they could do. And we've learned some really great things from people going on vacation. If you have an employee who you're not sure about, who you think might not be working out, having them go on vacation for a week is the best way to learn whether or not you want to have them around. If you don't miss them, then you don't want to have them around. Like if you're not like actively noticing what they are not there doing and feeling a little bit of missing of that, or missing them personally, or missing them in some way, to me that's been really clear a couple times that we're ready to move on from this particular person. But oftentimes a good employee doing a good job will have good coverage when they're gone, and when they come back, whoever was subbing or covering for them has gained these new skills, and everybody has kind of moved forward a healthy chunk. So I think having somebody gone most of the time, which is when you have 20 employees, you basically have somebody or a couple people gone all the time, is a really positive step for capacity growth of the business.
Interesting, and that really plays into the next question, which is, what's
Well,
your
it
employee
hasn't
review
been
process
that
like?
thorough or good until recently, and we just did these employee surveys, which I would really highly recommend. We asked questions like, how long could you see yourself working at Pete's Greens? How long do you want to do the job you're doing now? What makes you proudest of working here? What bothers you the most about working here? What can we do to improve your quality of life as far as working here is concerned? And we came out of that with such a clear picture of what our folks are headed towards. And what we learned is that we have a whole group of folks who have been here, less than a year, who are actually really interested in making this a career. And we didn't know that before, and that hasn't always been the case. And we sort of learned a lot about why they want to make it a career and what part of this place they're interested in focusing on, and what sort of growth, personal growth, will allow them to move forward in making it a career, and what sort of limitations will cause them to get frustrated and leave. And I was just blown away by the power of a simple survey like that, and it led to some really gratifying reviews where in the past we tended to just have these reviews where we kind of sat around and tried to assess how well people had been doing and give them some goals moving forward, where this time it really came from them. We really heard what they wanted, and some things have come out of that immediately. Like we got a pretty strong feedback from sort of the core Wash House group, who is kind of suffering through this long winter, that they want a little bit more sort of group activities going on. So tomorrow night we're going to one of our best restaurants. We're driving the van down there. Everybody's going. And then next week we're going to start having we have movies here sometimes outside in the summertime, and we're going to start having some, every couple weeks movies inside in the wintertime. And it really kind of reinforced to me how much we are also a big part of the community for some of these folks, and that they really want to be relating to each other out of the work hours as well. And that's always kind of a surprise to me, because I'm, when the workday is done, I don't generally want to hang out with everybody who works here so much. But I think that's sort of different because I have a certain relationship to them, or a lot of them, that is different from their relationship to each other, which is their peers, and some of them just want to get to know each other better and spend more time together. So some of these things have been really easy to implement, and just are going to build a little bit more, help with the winter doldrums and that kind of stuff. And so it's such a simple process, and I would really recommend it if you have a chance to do an employee survey. Yeah.
Employee surveys, excellent. I know you talked a little bit already about healthcare, but do you want to talk about
policy.
Is it individual policy
this
or
varies
group policy?
a lot, I think, state by state. Sometimes you can get involved with your Chamber of Commerce and get involved in their group policy. I don't know a lot about the details of it. This is another place that I sort of avoid the specifics and have good folks who take care of it. But it was a lot of work to find out the best way to go, and it costs a lot of money, but it's security that's been important to the crew. I think if you, wherever you are, talking to other business owners about what they do about health insurance, and everybody will have a story for you. And you talk to 10 people, and you're going to start to get a pretty clear picture of the best route where you are.
Excellent. There's still more questions coming in, so I just wanted to take a quick minute and say we've got about 18 minutes left, so please continue to keep your questions coming in the chat box. Question about field equipment and costs.
I'm not sure I
Do you
see that one.
Try to answer that one, Pete? It's kind of cryptic. Maybe Dennis can give us some more details, and we'll go on to the next question. Dennis, feel free to put in more details, and we'll come at that question next. Next question: paperwork for the. That's about the housing loan question. Sally, how do you approach the situation when you realize it's time for someone to move on?
Usually they do it on their own. Is the good news. Not always. We probably fire a person a year here, and for unemployment reasons, it's better when they quit on their own, or we've learned to really document why we fired them, because then we can help avoid some unemployment burden as well. Having people just kind of wander away without a clear distinction as far as what happened allows them to claim unemployment later on, and that can get pretty expensive. So we've developed a system of when somebody's struggling, we start to document what's going on, and we tell them about it, because that's only fair. And we give it time, and it's hard. We live in a small community, and sometimes these people are living right here in town, and we really try to avoid it, and we're really cautious with our hires now, and we really try to vet people carefully so this doesn't happen. And just 2 years ago, we had a guy working here who was really great. He had a lot of really strong benefits to our business, and we thought he was basically going to be a lifer. And his wife decided that she wanted to work here, and she seemed great too at first, and then it turned out she just wasn't. And in the course of basically trying to bring her up to speed, he ended up getting kind of frustrated with us, and they both ended up, well, we basically fired her, and then he quit. And that was just unfortunate. It was just one of these deals where I don't know what we could have done. I don't know how we could have properly figured out that she wasn't going to be what we were looking for in order to have avoided losing him. But it was uncomfortable and not fun. They still live, a mile from the farm and have sort of fallen out of being part of our community because of all this. And so it's really good to vet people as thoroughly as you can to try to avoid that kind of thing. Well,
what are your
it
favorite
turns
vetting
out
questions
that I
you
don't
ask
think
now?
that talking is much use at all. So what we really do is we bring people in for a relatively short interview, and we say, hey, if you think you want to work here, come and join in for a day at first, and then after that first day, if you're still interested and we're still interested, then we'll move forward. We get rid of a chunk of people in that first day who either have decided it's not for them or we have lost interest. And then we kind of have, after that first day, we kind of have a probationary period for a couple of weeks where there's no commitments being made. And sometimes they'll come and just work another couple random days, or sometimes they'll sort of dive right in and be employees here. But usually, actually, that first day is a pretty good proving ground, and we're usually able to learn a lot about folks. And you can save yourself a lot of time and hassle giving these big, extensive interviews by just saying, "Hey, you seem good. Why don't you come and work on Wednesday? We'll throw you right in there with the crew. You get to know them." I say, you can't really learn what this place is like from me. I've been here too long. I know too much. I don't have fresh eyes. You can learn what it's like from the guy who started 6 months ago. He can really tell you what it's like. So when you're washing carrots with him, you talk to him about how he feels about working here and all that. And by the end of the day, I can get a pretty good synopsis from the crew as far as how they feel about this person. And that's just how we do it, and it's pretty successful.
Excellent. Hey, Tyler, why don't you send some more information about your question? It seems a little cryptic, but we'll get it answered if you elaborate a little more in the chat box about part-time employee flexibility. Lori, specific labor management resource. Okay, Peter, what do you use for labor management?
Nothing in particular. It's actually not been one of our strong suits here, and we've just sort of learned in the school of hard knocks. I spent a long time mostly wanting to be a farmer and not wanting to manage people and working right alongside my people, and they either kind of tagged along and kept up or didn't, and that was okay for a while. But then we kind of hit this awkward stage where we really needed people to be really responsible, independent, and reliable and all this kind of stuff, and they weren't really getting enough support from me or other high-level folks here. So in the last year or so, it's really been this long, I've consciously shifted my role significantly enough to really be providing more support and being more aware of what folks are going through and trying to be proactive, trying to really, sometimes we have personality conflicts, really trying to nip them in the bud early on. Probably once a month I have a fairly good heart-to-heart meeting with, we have two really key people here who don't get along all that well. It's probably once every 2 months, but I basically have to sit them down every 60 days or so and kind of go through everything again for an hour and a half. And they're both too important to what we do here to get rid of either one of them. And what they engage in with each other varies from fine to pretty immature. So I've just accepted that as part of my reality. This is what's involved in having a business of this scale, and it doesn't really take that much time. And getting on this stuff early is much more effective than letting it fester. I mean, you can't imagine the damage it does to the rest of the crew when you have two of their bosses bickering and not getting along and creating tension with each other. And I've just learned over and over again that my job is to make sure that is not happening and to take care of it early on. And it's much more important than me being out driving a tractor or something like that. So we've just kind of learned stuff by doing it. I don't really have any particular resources to point you towards. Yeah.
Life is the best teacher. Sounds like. Well, here's a fun one. This is kind of a lobball question. You want to talk about your seeders?
We use a
the production
Sutton
side of
seeder,
things?
S-U-T-T-O-N. They're in Salinas, California. Great company for our baby greens and lots of other stuff. We use a Stan hay for seeding some of our root crops. You wonder, we have 80 acres in production. Brad was wondering that too. Sutton makes very big tractor-mounted seeders and also push seeders, and I can't recommend them highly enough as a company. Yeah, I'll just cover the next one too. We actually Dennis's question about irrigation.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't irrigate that much here. We have pretty consistent rainfall. We have a big traveling gun that we use probably 5 times a summer. We transplant with a water wheel transplant and lots of water. That usually gets our crops off and going. We're sort of in the mountains here. It's relatively cool compared to some places. We lease a lot of land in the area, and we don't have any irrigation on that land at all. We do a lot of drip irrigation in our greenhouses. No drip outside, even under plastic mulch. We do not drip irrigate under plastic mulch.
Excellent. What do you do? What do you do with a seasonal operation? When you can't just jump in with the crew, when you have to hire people for work that starts in May, you have to hire them in February.
Are you saying how would I go about doing that? Is that the question?
Yeah, like you can't just throw in. Sally's saying you can't just throw in people into the crew when there's no work going on in February when it starts in May, right? For some farms that are smaller.
I think that's one of the bigger arguments to doing some year-round stuff. And you can do the year-round stuff at lots of different scales. You can do just a little bit to keep your core 1 or 2 people at least partly occupied, or you can kind of go for it like we have. But I think that's a big challenge. There are farms in our neck of the woods here that do have a good returning crew every year, and they all go on unemployment for the whole winter. And once you max out your unemployment exposure, it doesn't get any greater. So the cost of the farm is sort of only a certain amount. And that's actually been pretty successful for a few of these operations. I'm kind of philosophically opposed to that, but it is a way to, have local folks available for you again come spring. And some of them on these farms get seasonal, like ski area work. We have ski areas around here, that sort of thing. And some of them are just on unemployment all winter, but they are available and ready come spring. Short of that, it's a real challenge. I think you'll find the occasional person here and there who is at a stage in their life that they want to work on your farm all summer and do something else all winter. But most people I know in that realm are kind of there for 2-3 years, and they're kind of moving on to something else.
Interesting. There's a question here. Part-time expectations. So do you have part-time workers, Pete? And how are your expectations different from them? How do you set schedules and log hours?
We have
things of that
very
nature?
rarely do we have part-time workers, and we don't really like it because we have a hard enough time keeping up on the communication with the full-time folks who are here. We do a ton of emailing here on the farm. Cell phones we don't have cell service here, and we've tried the whole walkie-talkie thing with varying degrees of success. So we basically carry around iPhones. We beam wireless around the farm, and we email each other all day long. And it's even at that, we struggle at times to make sure everybody knows what's going on and is fully informed. We do a lot of, group emailing. We do a lot of training of people, like our mechanic, struggles to understand everybody who should be copied to his email about the condition of the refrigerated truck. It's hard for him to kind of open his mind up to who all that affects. So we spend time training him on that. So you throw in somebody who's just coming here for a couple days a week, or just the afternoons, or whatever it may be, and for us it's really difficult. And we don't have anybody who has any kind of sort of varying schedule either, other than our kitchen manager, who's pretty autonomous, and she just kind of comes and goes as she pleases and gets the work done. But everybody else is really on a schedule. It's just we would almost need a part-time HR person to just deal with. I'm always blown away by these farms who employ high school kids and sort of juggle their summer vacations and soccer practice and this and that. And I admire it immensely, and it's really fun having high school kids around. We usually have one or two kicking around, but we would really struggle to operate in a scenario like that. And I think that's a great example of something that you lose at a certain scale. When you're at a certain scale and you have a family that's kind of running a farm and you need some help, you can more easily deal with that sort of thing, and that can be a really wonderful thing. At a certain point, you just can't deal with the logistics of who's coming and going and who's capable of doing what and all that. So. And also, we're really busy here in September and October, and we can't afford to have students who are back in school at that point.
Hey Pete, I'm getting some weird sounds coming from your mic. I wondered if you could. Is anybody else hearing that weird noise?
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Weird. It just. No, it sounds really weird. Does everybody else hear that? It sounds like you're a robot or something. It's terrible. I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, Pete, I'm gonna make you a participant and then have you come back in. I'm sorry, everyone. This has been a very funny night of technology. Let's see if that helps. Okay, Pete, are you back in? Or is it Robot Pete?
How's that?
You might
better?
need to turn on your audio again up in the upper black bar on top of the screen. Yes, thank goodness. Okay. The question we're at, we've got 5 minutes left. The question we're at is, do you have separate crews for harvest and wash pack?
And don't harvest,
how do you manage the workflow?
Everybody who washes also harvests, and we tend to kind of be out there harvesting and then come in and wash and pack, sort of as a group, except for the packers who are sort of more stable. But a lot of that's really particular to how you're selling your food, what your markets are, all that kind of stuff. There's no real right answer there.
So there is definitely economic opportunity. Do you feel like there's a lot of economic opportunity in the farm to market industry?
And it's really amazing what's happened in Vermont in just the last 5 years. How many new ventures there are, how many of them seem to be doing well, and I suspect the same in many of your areas. And it turns out that you actually can make money growing vegetables, and while it's hard work and whatnot, it's a nice lifestyle, and I'm always sort of blown away when I talk to friends and stuff who have sort of regular 9-to-5 jobs and maybe 2 weeks of vacation a year, and I feel in many ways so free compared to them, and grateful for what we have here and the flexibility that we have, and it's fun. I mean, it's just amazing that the endless challenges that you can create for yourself and how interesting they can all be. And to me, this is all based on, and this is probably a topic you guys have covered before, but a real commitment to being profitable and a real commitment to being focused on the business side of it. And that comes naturally to me, and I know it doesn't so much for many small farmers. But to me, sustainability and lifestyle and stuff all comes from having some degree of financial comfort, or at least security. And I really think it's well worth focusing on that enough to make sure that everything's in order there, because when the financial part starts to come apart, the rest of it comes apart pretty quickly, and it becomes not fun in a hurry.
Absolutely. Well, I think I was just going to say it's 8:31, so we will have to conclude now, but thank you for the additional questions, everybody, and I really think this is one of the best Farminars we've ever done, despite the technological loss of Melissa part of the way, and then Robot Pete, the late arrival of Robot Pete. I want to thank our sponsors and funders real quick, the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program, Cliff Bar, John Deere, Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship. Oh, I'm going to forget a couple. I know I will. Cedar Tree Foundation, and all the other folks that help put this on. We do pay our farmers for their knowledge. We really, really encourage them to hold us accountable in the nonprofit sector to make sure we pay them well for their hard work, and we're very grateful for all of
Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to checking out your other Farminars.
Very, very thankful, Pete, that we can make this work. And Melissa, thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.